This week, we've seen ballistic babysitting, afterlife antics, and magical mendings. Let's dive right into what's on the pull list. This week, we're kicking things off with 100 Bullets, The U.S. of Anger, number 1, written by Brian Azzarello with artwork by Eduardo Riso. So this is the team jumping back into the property that was like a Vertigo mainstay back when Vertigo was a powerhouse within the DC comic book industry, right? And this is toying a lot with the ideas of the past here. Now, I only know a smidgen of what actually happened here. I didn't actually go back and read the entirety of 100 Bullets in preparation for this. But what I have to say is I feel like you get enough from this issue to kind of know a little bit about what's going on. So what I can tell you is that it does toy with characters from the previous iteration of the series. That series, by the way, was 100 issues, and it all kind of boils down to the idea of this agency that has 100 bullets that can basically be untraced. And each issue then takes the place of a bullet who is meant for a certain individual. And it's given to people to kind of, dole out whatever kind of retribution or whatever, vengeance they might see. And we start to get a little bit of the inklings of what that idea would be in 2026. This has a very real, in this moment, in the world kind of feel to it. It definitely kind of deals with a lot of the, I don't know, the societal distrust right now. There's a lot of, it's a thinly veiled look at the podscape arena as well, and maybe the influence that those kind of like places and like ideas have on society and individuals itself. I don't know. This was a fun issue. I really love the artwork on here. Eduardo Riso's brings like a look and feel to the book that I feel like is absolutely necessary. I don't know if there's another artist that could take on a property like 100 Bullets and the ideas that Brian Azzarello is really kind of toying with here. If you're looking for escapism, I've said this previously, this probably isn't the book for you, but I think that it kind of dives into a lot of ideas here that are definitely worth exploring. All right, let's talk The Deadman number 2, written by W. Maxwell Prince with artwork by Martin Morazzo. All right, so let me jump off by saying this. I'm extraordinarily glad that it was a light week of comics because it took me not one read, not two reads, but three reads to really feel like I got a grasp on what was being, I don't know, toyed with within the pages of this book. On the surface, it's very simplistic. We have the dead man who is both trying to help people achieve getting to the afterlife, right? That's kind of his duty. But on top of that, he's also trying to find out what is going on with this mechanism that is stopping souls from achieving getting to the afterlife. And in doing so, W. Maxwell Prince has an approach that is very much akin to what he deals with in the book Ice Cream Man, but it is a very, very verbose read. Not in a bad way necessarily, but with the amount of things that they're playing with spirituality from different aspects and like a lot of different, I don't know, ideas and things that they're kind of like working with, like the idea of dying, of death, of an afterlife, of societal connections within like maybe a soul. There's a lot of things that they're toying with, and it is all cram packed in this issue. So I think this is effective. I think that it's a really good read. And again, it's maybe one that you need to take your time with and slow down or read multiple times to really pick up on the things that they're toying with. I liked it. It was a labor, but it was a labor of love. Next up, we have Iron Man number 7, written by Joshua Williamson with artwork by Von Randall. So this is the first issue where we've had an artistic change, I believe, maybe the second issue, in fact. But Von Randall has a much different approach than what we've seen previously in this book. I think the last issue had Juan Cabal, much grittier, much sketchier style, but I think that it definitely fit with what they were trying to do in this issue. So this issue is really like a Chekhov's gun type of issue. They're setting things up for the future. They're setting stuff up that is probably going to be going off later on in this arc. So Rhodey comes to talk to Tony. He's now basically escaped AIM. He's survived. He's taken all of the kids that were brought under AIM and kind of like given them a place to stay and given them a purpose, right? The Tony Stark Foundation, if you will. He's trying to put the best and brightest together to solve the world's problems. And Rhodey is trying to reconcile that because on the side, all of the Avengers and all the greater super heroic society don't necessarily trust Tony Stark right now. So the thing that happens in this issue is that these kids, right, the bright individuals that he's brought together, they put together a mechanism that seems to me is going to play a big part later on. And I don't want to give anything away necessarily, but it feels like it's going to be a mechanism for either helping Tony or definitely hurting Tony. And one of those two things is going to happen, because by the end of this issue, we are left with the cliffhanger of another villainous entity that is going to be pulled back into into the pages of Iron Man itself. So this was a good issue. It was very much a setup issue, though. All right, let's talk Minor Arcana number 16, written by Jeff Lemire with artwork by Jeff Lemire and Leticia Cardenisi. This was a really, really good issue of Minor Arcana. What we have seen in the previous couple issues here is that our main character's best friend, in fact, a person that she was intimate with in the past, they had split apart, and now that other person has a husband who happens to be a police officer in this town. He is now in a coma. He's in the hospital, and it's due to some of the magical happenings that have been going on in this town. Now, she comes to our main character to kind of ask a favor because she knows that these magical psychic abilities, if you will, could maybe help, could maybe figure out what is going on with her husband and how can we get him back, and is he still conscious, cognizant, right? So they decide that they're going to go ahead and enact this plan here, but that's not to say that everything goes exactly how they intended it to. What I like about this issue, though, is like I said, there's two artists on here, Jeff Lemire and Leticia Cardenisi. And when you get two artists, oh boy, sometimes that is a recipe for disaster. It's not here, though. They do it very strategically. Leticia Cardenisi really kind of doles with everything in the past, all the flashback time frames when we're dealing with our main character and this other individual, them coming up in high school, them developing their relationship, both friendly and romantic. And Jeff Lemire deals with the right here and right now. He's in, the present day as they're kind of talking through all of the circumstances that are happening. Really great when that kind of thing happens. They're definitely planning this out. They're being strategic with it, and I really appreciate that. Minor Arcana, I feel like, is the book that not enough people are talking about. It is maybe the strongest title in Boom's, landscape right now. All right, let's talk Poison Ivy number 46, written by G. Willow Wilson with artwork by Leandro Fernandez. This was an interesting issue, and I feel like I've said that the last couple times here. Poison Ivy is slowing down a bit and making me scratch my head just a bit more than I feel comfortable with. This issue, while the title is named Poison Ivy, does not have Poison Ivy in it at all. We're really focused on everyone surrounding Poison Ivy, right? Everyone that is part of her mayoral campaign and mayoral offices, right? So Janet from HR is almost the main player in this issue, as they're just walking through the town and kind of dealing with all of the backlash that has occurred because of Poison Ivy's decisions that she's made, right? All of the circumstances and everything that's happened with her being mayor. And in that way, it's okay. It's kind of nice to kind of build all those feelings up and really get the perspective of all the different characters. And you can see that, like, those cracks in the veneer are starting to be a little bit more than cracks, as everything else is really starting to fall apart in the world of Poison Ivy. Janet from HR sees this, but also she's cognizant enough to know her role in all of this, and she understands exactly how she feels about this and maybe how Poison Ivy herself really feels about these circumstances, and even Janet herself. She knows she needs to call someone else from the sidelines back into the fray here, and I'm excited to see where that is going to take things, because I think this needs an injection. The Poison Ivy title, it needs some kind of, like, some big moment to really reignite my I don't know, my feelings towards this title. It was good, far from great though. Next up, we have The Punisher number 6, written by Benjamin Percy with artwork by Farid Karimi. So I said in my last my last review when this issue came out, that Punisher was probably going to be one I dropped, but it was a very light week. I figured I would give it another shot. I want this title to do something for me. And I have to say, this issue did not do that thing that I needed it to do. This is another issue where there's not a whole lot of plot development. And I'm not asking a lot from a title like The Punisher in regards to plot development. But what we get here is essentially an extended viewpoint of another mercenary that's come into New York City, that we don't know who he's working for necessarily, but it's a lot of rinse and repeat, a lot of the same. We know that there's a power vacuum in the city. We know that the Punisher has this thing that he's dealing with. Microchip is helping him, but also a little bit of an adversary. They're trying. he's walking on thin ice basically. And through the issue, the mechanism that takes us through this is that there is this, bullet that is able to dodge and weave and maneuver all around here to get to the targets that he's looking to get to without it being linear. And, that's not the most exciting thing here when we come to a world like the Marvel universe, when there's, literal gods with hammers that can, summon lightning, right? Or a man in an iron suit that can fly and shoot missiles. I don't know. I don't know. Punisher is, there are parts that really interest me, but for the overall experience, I just feel like it's not doing enough for me to keep me invested in figuring out what is happening with this title and where are we going to be going. So, you know, it's okay. All right, let's talk the Shaolin Cowboy staying A.I.Live #1, written and drawn by Jeff Darrow. So it's been a little bit since we got our last Shaolin Cowboy entry, and I'm glad that it's back here because every entry is a new opportunity for a new reader to get on this book. So the first thing I can tell you is that while this is not an introduction, and while this does not hold your hand in telling you everything that's happened in the past of Shaolin Cowboy, you don't really need that. The plot is secondary to the art and the fun that you have in this kind of storyline. So if you're trepidatious about like jumping in, not knowing things, like just push that aside here. Get this issue and really enjoy Jeff Darrow's artwork. What the issue all revolves around is that our main character, the Shaolin Cowboy, comes across a bottle with a message in it. And that message is basically the death note of an individual saying to seek out this person, Beatrice. And the Shaolin Cowboy, being the Shaolin Cowboy, he's kind of just a do gooder, right? He just finds a mission, an adventure, and does something with it. That's kind of like his mission statement. So what does he do? He goes to seek these things out. So again, thin on plot, man, but let me tell you, the artwork really, really makes up for it. It is, to call it hyper detailed is probably an understatement. The level of detail that goes into every panel, every page, every little quip and quirky thing that happens on here, it is freaking glorious, man. It is a sight to behold here. I love the action, the excitement, the poses too. Jeff Darrow has a really great understanding of anatomy and kind of making it work in the most interesting way possible. This is the dude that also was responsible for like the visual language of the Matrix, for God's sake. So if someone's going to understand movement and excitement, well, Jeff Darrow's that dude definitely. So the Shaolin Cowboy, like I said, if you're worried that you're not going to have what you need to understand what's going on, don't let that scare you. Pick this up. It's really worth it. All right, with our next issue, we have Supergirl Survive #2, written by Ethan Parker and Griffin Sheridan, with artwork by Rod Reese. Man, so this is a incredibly fun issue, right? And I think it pairs really well with issue #1. What we essentially get here is an Elseworld story for Supergirl where it is not Kal-El that is just sent off when Krypton explodes. It is her and Kal-El that are sent off here, right? They are both the dual survivors, and she is tasked with raising Kal-El at this point. So it's a little bit of a lone wolf and cub kind of aspect to it. And in this issue, they are on the run, they're fugitives at this point, and they're just trying to do their best to both survive and make sure that they can get to a planet that is sustainable and that they can kind of, I don't know, just find a place to kind of like lay down and, make their new home. But all the while, there are people that are, seeking them out, right? Bounty hunters. And those bounty hunters just happen to be a handful of Zarnians, one of those being Lobo himself. So we could definitely tell that there's some synergy. There's a Supergirl movie, there's a Lobo character in this, they smash them together. So, that's fine. That's all well and good here. What I can tell you, though, is that the issue is incredibly fun. Rod Reese, any excuse you get to have Rod Reese do a book like this, like just jump at it, man, because that guy's artwork is fantastic. He brings this really great classic cosmic flair and feel to this book. Like the blaster is like almost like, the Looney Tunes Martians blaster. It's like the cylindrical thing with the cylinders on it. Really cool stuff. Like it's that artistic quality that really kind of like makes you smile as you're reading this book. The narrative is very fun. The artistic qualities definitely make it shine, though, through and through. So Supergirl Survive, again, it's a fun kind of issue here. Not a lot of meat on the bone for a big crazy things, but also it's an Elseworlds book. It's supposed to just toy with the things that are kind of like on the surface level here because we know it's going to be finite. So let's just have fun in the time that we have with it. And with my runner-up book of the week, let's talk Batman #11, written by Matt Fraction with artwork by Jorge Jimenez. Okay, so Since Matt Fraction has taken over Batman, I feel like it's had this episodic nature with the issues. There is a an arc that is building through these, but each issue kind of delivers this individual story that we get that feels really satisfying. And I really like this new approach here. It feels very different than what Zdarsky did, than what Tynion did before him, than maybe even what Tom King did before him. And I think it's really worthwhile. And this issue is another great example of that. So we're kind of pulling back to a couple issues previously. We know that there is this Minotaur character, right, that is kind of like pulled in all of the crime families, all the syndicates together in a way to just make sure that everyone is profitable, everyone is happy. But in doing so, there's a lot of big egos in that room. And we start to see that because now the Penguin is calling everyone in together saying, hey, sure, we're making money hand over fist, but we've lost all control of what we do. And now we're basically just employees of a system that we tried to avoid altogether anyway, because that's why we became criminals. So there's a lot of really great ideas that they're toying with. By the way, Matt Fraction's dialogue for those scenes is absolutely spectacular. You could tell like there's a real naturalistic flow to all of the dialogue that's happening here. Now, on the flip side, we also get Bruce Wayne dealing with everything that's happened here on his quote unquote date and the revelation that was told to that person here, and maybe giving away certain identities. Then Bruce is also dealing with Damien, who has been the person who gave those secrets away, right? And he's trying to navigate being a father, being a person that clearly has interest with this other individual. And by the end of this issue, we're given a cliffhanger where there is another familial relationship that is going to be toyed with just a little bit. And I'm excited what they do with that kind of idea, specifically knowing that Damien is going to be there with them all together. Matt Fraction is doing something special here, and with Jorge Jimenez on the artwork, the way that he's able to render all of these scenes and all of these, I don't know, ideas on the panel here, whether it's the quiet moments or the big bombastic moments in the fights that happen, it's just glorious here. Batman, I'm having so much fun with it here. It is definitely one of the flagship titles amongst all of the comics on my pull list. And with my top comic of the week, let's talk Absolute Martian Manhunter number 12, written by Dennis Camp with artwork by Javier Rodriguez. Man, remember when I said it was a light week and it was probably better for it? Yeah, this is another three times reading kind of issue. But man, let me tell you, I'm so happy that I had the opportunity to read it as many times, because Dennis Camp, throughout this entire series, a lot of the things that not only I've said, but others that have been reading this book have been saying is that this guy's playing with big ideas, and it is so much deeper than the surface level that we, generally get with super heroic comic books. This is something completely different than that. We're toying with ideas of emotions and feelings and trauma, and how that stuff digs deep into a person's psyche, and how we can be really deceived by ourselves and by others around us, and how we need to persevere through that or not, right? There's so many different things that are being toyed with in this, and it really makes you really feel more so for the character of Johns, the detective, in this than we ever have in the past. It is a very emotional, very introspective issue for our finale with our trio of characters, right? The familial unit within this book, the detective, his wife, and his son. And the interconnectivity between all three of them. It's kind of interesting that we have three of them, and we also have our three Martian-esque characters, right? We have Despair, we have the Martian Manhunter, and also we have the White Martian. And all of those things are vying for control and like really presenting different viewpoints and aspects that Dennis Camp really gets to really play with in a really great way. And when I say play with, he's presenting different viewpoints and different perspectives on each one of these things, right? There's different ways that we can look at these things. It's an incredibly emotional story, right? This is something I feel like if you have a partner, if you have a child, if you have a family, it's incredibly difficult to not see this resonate with you. And maybe even if you don't, right? It's a crazy kind of story that gets explored too few times in superhero comics, but Dennis Camp is definitely the kind of person that can bring that to the forefront here. It was amazing, it was fantastic. Again, took a little bit of time here. I wanted to make sure that I really let it digest and really let it soak in for as long as possible, and I'm so glad that I did, and it made it absolutely worthy of top comic of the week. Man, I'm going to be really sad to see Absolute Martian Manhunter go, but we know that the team of Dennis Camp and Javier Rodriguez are going to be back with another title here sometime in the near future. Speaking of the near future, the On the Pull List comic book review show, we're going to take a couple weeks off here, but fear not, I will be back here by the end of July with all of my thoughts on the comic books that have come out here. I'm definitely still going to be reading here. In the meantime, though, make sure to check out these videos right here for some of my other comic thoughts.